What we're going to do now is we're going to review the ICF Core Competencies to get you exam ready. And the ICF Core Competencies has 4 different key domains. We call them the foundation. Okay, the next domain is co-creating the relationship. And the next domain is communicating effectively. And the last domain is cultivating learning and growth. So there are 4 domains, 8 core competencies, and many, many sub-competencies. Okay, so what is important to understand is most people don't realize, hey, actually there's a domain. Okay, what does the domain mean? The domain means that within this section or this domain, there are several competencies packed within this domain. Okay, so there is 4 domains, 8 competencies packed in this 4 categories or 4 domains, and every competency there are sub-competencies. And from the sub-competencies, ICF then derive what we call behavioral markers or PCC markers or ACC behavioral standards across all the 3 levels from the competency set itself. So in preparing for the exam, it's going to be useful to look at the core competencies first, understand the way it's phrased, why is it phrased like this. So we want to reflect on that. So we'll go through each competency. I'm going to highlight certain key phrase and keywords for you. So I'm not going to go through every line item. You're going to read that, and then I'm going to highlight several key items so that's going to be relevant for us. Okay, so the first competency is demonstrates ethical practice. So sometimes you see this as CC1. The key one-liner for this is that ethics is not something that I do or don't do alone, but it's the way of being in the coaching process. So it doesn't say, okay, this is the black, white, everything, because there are many, many gray zones in the ethical practice. So in the scenario questions, they will purposely make it in a way that is very gray. It can be this, it can be that, right? And ICF also realizes that there are many situations or many scenarios where I cannot put a definite answer for each one because their context, there are local laws of the land, there are legal frameworks that will also influence it. What is culturally acceptable for one culture may not be accepted in another culture. So that's where ICF also realizes that I cannot put everything together, right? So there are certain rules, there's a certain way of understanding and thinking. So when we think about ethical practice, right, you notice the word here doesn't say adhere, but rather demonstrate it. And although there's an adherence, but there's a way of demonstrating it in the way we conduct ourselves. So when the scenario comes out, it'll be a lot about which one of these actions best demonstrates the ethical practice, rather than adherence or fear of the ethical practice, right? So this is more of the keywords here. So these are a few keywords or key phrases to kind of remember. The first one, it's this idea of personal integrity, honesty. That means for a coach, there is a set of ICF values that we kind of abide by or we subscribe to, that is very aligned to coaching, and it's more, we'll say, more holistic. It will be applied across, generally amongst most population of humanity. Things like equity, things like humility, things like integrity, that's general across all. So most people will agree that integrity and honesty are essential. Okay, so when you read the scenario, there'll be things like which one best demonstrates personal integrity and honesty in the dealings, especially when it comes to gray zone. Now, recently, ICF has introduced this new phrase. I'm going to put here as well. Is what is there's a phrase that ICF uses where, when in doubt, we do not know what to choose. There's this phrase called "do good." Okay, the principle of doing good rather than avoiding harm. So in cases where it's very, very gray, I'm not sure what to do. Should I do this? Should I do that? I would choose the best option that best represents doing good. Okay, with personal integrity and honesty. Okay, then the next one, this is very important, which is sensitive to the client's identity, context, values, and beliefs. Okay, so this one sensitive to the clients. Okay, so why we say the clients? Because every client will have their different set of identity. They can be a young youth, they can be a senior, they can be of a different class or different culture, different background, different gender. So we want to be respectful for their identity. The context would be the work context, the as a public officer, as a private officer, whichever, and the values and beliefs. So everyone will have the different sets of that. The next one is what we call appropriate and respectful language. Okay, which is most respectful, which is most appropriate for the client. And what the ICF calls abiding by the ICF Code of Ethics. So this is an entire document that ICF has developed, and this is where you want to kind of read through it, because it lays out everything about what the ethical practice is all about. So ethical practice, there is the sense of what's most respectful to the client, and are we abiding by the ICF Code of Ethics? Okay. Apart from the Code of Ethics, there's also a document called Insights and Considerations. And this is usually in the part 4 of the ICF Code of Ethics, where there are certain phrases and certain concepts or certain terminologies used that may not be so easily understood. So ICF has a separate addendum document or support document called Insights and Considerations, where you kind of think about, under these circumstances, confidentiality, what are some considerations I need to take on? Right. So a lot of considerations in ethics. And you have this thing on confidentiality. So definitely there'll be 1 or 2 questions on confidentiality. To what degree do I keep confidence? The conversation that I have with the client. How much do I tell? How much do I tell the stakeholders? Do I tell the sponsors? How much do I not say? What do I say? What do I not say? So maintains confidentiality. The next part is maintaining that sense of clear professional boundaries. So, for example, if the client is coming into the space where can you do some therapy for me? Can you do some counseling for me? When it crosses the scope of coaching, then I need to refer them to the appropriate support function. Or when the client says, I'm having some suicidal ideation, or I'm depressed, or I'm having medical depression, right? So this kind of keywords, then I need to know when to refer the client to the professional, to other professionals. And that's where I say refers when appropriate. So these are the key things that we want to remember for core competency number 1. Okay. Any questions here? Yes, next.
Yes, this maintain confidential. My challenge the last time is that because we are the corporate coach, right? And then the employer wants us to coach the employee, and the employee share a lot of things that that the employer want to know, right? So when they ask us, to what level should we disclose or not disclose?
So that's a good question. You shouldn't. Okay. So the official answer is refer back to the confidentiality clause that was agreed upon. All right. So before we start the coaching engagement, there will be a session where I sit down with the boss, with the sponsors, whoever the relevant stakeholders. We discuss what are some potential areas that are kept confidential between me and the coachee, or me and the client, or me and the staff, and then what are areas that we are okay to share. And in areas that are a little bit gray, then I'll always invite the boss or the sponsor to go directly to the coachee or the client, talk to them directly, rather than coming through me. So that I don't want to be in a position where I become like the mediator. Hey, you go and tell them, they need to back up their performance. Hey, you go and tell my employee you should do this. Then you become like a tool, like you get stuck in between. So usually what I try to do is to mitigate that. In the confidentiality clause, would have stated what is something that we would say, what is something we will not say, and we will also inform the coachee or the client what is something that we will say, what is something we will not say. And some of the clear rules is that will go even beyond the company. For example, if there's a clear violation of the local law of the land, even if the boss say and the sponsor say, oh, please don't tell the police, please don't tell anybody, but because it violates the local law of the land and you are aware, you cannot not say anything. Otherwise, you will also be indicted as well, right? So that's why we say, if any form of criminal offense that is at the state level or the country level, or breaks any kind of legal international law, you have to report them according to the relevant law of the lands. And as such, this confidentiality is not all-encompassing confidentiality, right? So, for example, if the client says, "Oh, I want to share you some insider trading," oh, I want to share you something. I recently stole the company toilet paper because I realized my home ran out of toilet paper. Right? Please don't tell the company boss. Right? So if the client comes to me and say, hey, I stole a company toilet paper, is that okay? Should you report?
How many you take? No.
I took two pieces of paper, two rows.
Huh? What you say? I cannot hear you.
So you see, there's some areas, right? Let's say the individual tells you, oh, I just took a piece of paper from the photocopier, 1 or 2 pieces of paper. Is it stealing? It is technically stealing. Oh, I charge my phone in the office. Is it stealing? Yes, it's stealing because I'm stealing the electricity, right? So then some people say, okay, if I some companies have some regulations where they allow employees to charge their phone, but they can only charge 1 cycle. Some companies say you cannot charge your phones in a company because that's stealing company's electricity. Because then companies say, oh, recently my staff, they've been charging their power banks, absorbing the company's electricity, or be they charging their Game Boy or their Nintendo Switch, right? Using companies electricity, that's stealing. All these are very, very gray, very, very. It sounds okay, not okay, sound acceptable. This kind of grayness, it's where during your tripartite meeting or your onboarding meeting, we need to clarify with the agency or the sponsor. And when the client gets first onboarded with you, then I will tell the client, okay, anything you say here will keep confidential between both of us. However, where things that are brought up that is against company's policy, or there's a violation against the law of the land, or where there's clearly wrongdoings, I may have to report this to the relevant authorities. Okay, so these are something important. For example, let's say the individual says, I feel so depressed. Okay, I feel so depressed. But because he just said I feel so depressed, he's a normal person, but he feels so depressed. It doesn't mean that something wrong with him. Right? It doesn't mean that they tell the boss, hey boss, your staff very depressed. I think he got mental health breakdown. You better fire him. Then this is wrong also, because some people, when they say they're depressed, they don't really mean depressed. Right? It's an expression of that stress they're feeling in the moment. So as the coach, my first step is to clarify what is happening for the client. Has the client seen any kind of physician? Have they gotten anything, or are they just expressing their emotions? Because sometimes people just express their emotions. It may not be clinically depressed. It's just that I feel so depressed from work, This is an expression of that emotion. So then, at a point of time, I, as the coach, have to evaluate whether is this something that I need to refer to more appropriate authorities, or do I need to refer this individual to someone else who can better support this individual? So another case, if the client consistently tells you, I'm depressed, right? After one session, after two sessions, and then you notice physically a fatigue all over the client. Okay, then probably it's a sign already where I need to invite the client to consider perhaps coaching may not be the best form, and whether the client wants to consider other support functions that could better support him in this challenging period of time. Okay, good. Any questions here so far? Okay, so that's competency one. The key thing here is the whole ethics is demonstrated across the whole coaching engagement, from onboarding to the actual coaching to the post-coaching. The entire thing, right, is being demonstrated. So sometimes you see that even the post-session or the pre-session also, it's where we kind of demonstrate ethical practice, right? So that's why the thing here is it doesn't say follow ICF Code of Ethics, but rather demonstrates ethical practice. Competency number one. Okay, competency number two, that's where we talk about embodies a coaching mindset. So this is something unique. In the past, there wasn't this competency, but now ICF has included this in the 2019 version of the core competency, where it says, where the idea is, it's more about you as the coach. That means not about what you do so much than who you are in the conversation. So a lot of coaches at the ACC level, they tend to focus on what are the tools I need to use, what are the techniques I need to do, what are the conversations that they have. So they're very, very focused on the doing. But who the coach is matters more, because you will show up in the conversation, and you may not realize you're influencing the client in certain ways, right? So who you are matters more. So here, it's what's going to be important is recognizing that clients are responsible for their own choices, right? And also developing ongoing learning effective practice. So this is something important as well. As a coach, I'm building the ongoing effective practice. So this is where why individuals who go through level 1, level 2 training with us, ACC or PCC or beyond, they want to come and continue learning every year. Maybe let's say they sign up for our level 1 ACC program. Next year, they can come and do an upgrade, focus on other skills, on other competencies. They want to kind of develop ongoing reflective practice. And the keywords here are open, curious, flexible, and client-centered. So these are 4 very important keywords. Is the coach open to new ideas? Maybe, coach always think that, I cannot have coffee before bed. Right? Because coffee got caffeine, cannot sleep before bed. If the coach has this mindset, the coach must be open that maybe the client may be different. The client needs coffee to sleep, right? So yeah. So I need to be open, curious, right, and also flexible. And the whole key idea is client-centeredness. Am I centered on the client, or am I centered on the solution? So sometimes coaches are so focused on solution focus that they forget it's not about the solution. Solution is the byproduct, but it's about the client. Yeah. Okay. Then also being aware of my own personal biases, assumptions, my own culture, my own context. So, for example, if I grew up in Singapore and I'm coaching someone from outside of Singapore, I may not realize that, hey, maybe my own context, my own culture may have influenced my thinking about career, life, aspirations. Right? I may not realize that. So this is where we also think about it. For example, in Singapore, when you talk to any young people, right, they'll tell you, okay, I graduate, I go find this job. Then after that, I go here, I go. They like kind of pre-plan everything because the education system has taught them that, okay, you get a degree, go degree, you work this job. After 2-3 years, you jump. 2-3 years, you jump. And that's the system here. But when you go to some other countries, maybe it's totally different. To them, why must go university? Yeah, maybe I don't need university. I'd rather go and work in a Starbucks or McDonald's and then have other side jobs and then have a more fulfilling life rather than being stuck in the office. So in their context, they value the freedom a little bit more. Right. So then I must be aware of, am I influencing the client to my thinking, or am I being curious about their thinking as well? Okay. Then managing emotions and well-being and user self-awareness for intuition and seek supervision when needed. Okay, so these are all important elements for coaching mindset. So the key thing here is when I notice my emotions rising up and down. For example, you recently got, maybe you struck 40, right, and then you got so happy, and when you come into the conversation, the client looks a bit down, but you're smiling, it will affect the client as well, right? So I need to also regulate my own emotion when I'm meeting the client as well. So the coaching mindset is about noticing me and also noticing the client in that moment. Okay, so the key idea here, right? Coaching mindset is non-attachment to my own ideas and my own beliefs, but trusting the client to make the choices, and because they are the best individuals to know what is the best way or what's the best option for themselves. This is true for mature clients. Okay, so there's another part on what we call children's coaching, where although clients are responsible for their own choice, but because children may not have enough like lived experience, so they may need a lot more support from the parent or the adult to kind of help them to understand and navigate better. So for children's coaching, there will be a different set of considerations as well. Okay, but generally for matured adults who are able to think, who are able to have cognitive awareness. Okay, so we're also looking at different spectrums of adulthood, right? Some individuals have certain challenges where they cannot make certain decisions for themselves. So that's where we also have to consider that all this is in the context of an ordinary, average individual adult who is able to make reasonable choices for themselves. If someone is living under the influence, or maybe they have very, very bad setbacks and they cannot make responsible choices for themselves, then this part you have to have added considerations as well. For example, if you're coaching halfway houses, you're coaching past addicts or past people, individuals who may have certain mental cognitive inability, then other considerations will come in as well. Okay, good. Any questions here for competency 2? Nope. Okay, then let's go competency 3. So competency 3 will fall under this umbrella called the co-creating the relationship. So you notice we keep using the word co-creating because the idea of co-creating here is partnership. So when ICF uses the word co-creating, they also use the word partnering interchangeably. Okay, collaborating, partnering, they're all kind of like similar words they use. Now, the reason why sometimes they use partnering, sometimes use co-creating, because not every language can translate the word co-creating very, very well. So sometimes ICM may have to use the word co-creating to better facilitate that conversation in a better way. Okay, so here we have competency 3 on establishes and maintains agreements, and here we see some of the key ideas here, where we want to have clarity about how we want to move this coaching conversation to create safety, and then flexibility creates the flow. So here are a few things here. One, partnering the client. That is the most important part. Are my choices in the spirit of partnering the client? Do I have clear relation or clear agreements at the relationship level with me and the client, me and the stakeholders, and also at the session level? Every session, do I have a clear relation? And am I aware of what the client wants to accomplish? Is there a certain sense? Is there a certain measure of success for the session? How do I manage the time and focus for the conversation? And then am I revisiting the agreements when needed? And do I close the relationship respectfully with the client? So the whole coaching agreement has a few parts. One is the administrative part, setting up everything. The other one is the sessional parts, where we actually execute, and then finally closing and wrapping up everything. Right. So this is you can think of coaching agreement as the kind of like the layout, the schematics of the entire coaching conversation, right? And the key idea here is that every agreement is co-created. So I'm not imposing what you should do. Rather, the outcome is co-created together in the moment with the client. So you see a lot more of the words co-creation, the spirit of co-creation, going back to the agreements. So when in doubt, like that's how we mentioned earlier, right? Which is the sponsor requests this, the sponsor wanted that, the boss wanted this. I will go back to what was written in the agreement, but what is not in the agreement. Then we open for discussion and choose the best option that best exemplifies the core competencies and the code of ethics. Yeah. Okay.
You help me go back to the third one. What is establish and maintain agreement? Above that, number two.
Number two is the coaching mindset.
This seek supervision or help when needed. Elaborate a bit on this.
Okay, so in the coaching mindset, right, when we encounter issues or cases where we do not know what to do, it's so gray, it's not really written down, we don't have really a clear understanding, then we may seek a coach supervisor. So in this case, let's say, for example, when I do supervision, I support coaches as well. So sometimes coaches encounter cases where they do not know how to handle. They have a case issue. They may come to me. I will discuss with them the case. What are some considerations to think about? How do we navigate the case? And then the supervisor is there, or supervision is there to provide them another perspective for the coach. Yeah, so this is to support the coach in terms of coach development and also coach awareness, because sometimes the coach may not be aware that they have certain biases. So when they have a supervisor, a little bit like the mentor, the supervisor will tell them, hey, I'm noticing that your coaching has always been focusing like that, right? Or maybe you're becoming too hard on the client. So the supervisor may give direct feedback, may give areas of improvements or areas where the coach can think about how to improve. Or when the coach has questions, challenges, issues, they can bring to the supervisor as well to discuss.
Yeah, because I think the exam, they ask quite a bit of this thing where the situations where you can't handle. I think one of the options is, will you go and talk to your supervisor? Yeah. So my first exam failed because I thought talk to supervisor means I'm not competent, so I never talk to them.
Yeah. So seek supervisor when needed. So sometimes the question is that I encounter is I don't know what to do, right? So then I'll seek supervision when required.
Okay. And this one for Joanne to take note. Seeking supervisor is not something that reflect non-competency. It reflect the right way of doing it.
Yep. So now the word is supervision, but there are other words that's being played around now. People use the word mentoring, mentor coaching, supervision, or coach supervisor. Some people use the word the coach or the coach facilitator, or the coach talent, or the coach consultant. They're different phrases, but the key idea here is that the individual is supporting the coach to kind of help the coach navigate through certain difficult cases, or helping them to develop the coach holistically. Where the mentor coach focuses a lot about competency development. And then everything else outside of competency development, things like the personhood of the coach well-being, the coach development of self, everything else, then that will be the coach supervisor role. Okay, good. Now let's go to competency 4, cultivates trust and safety. So here, cultivates trust and safety, we're looking at where sometimes we may think about it as, before you can have trust, you need to develop or create a safe space for the client, right? So, for example, if today I come to a conversation and say, "Hey, Dennis, can you trust me? Trust me, right? I'm here for you." So when whenever you hear a coach or someone tells you, "Hey, trust me, I'm here for you," automatically like a big question mark. Then I don't know whether I can trust you, right? Say, "Hey, I'm your teacher for today. You trust me," right? So when we say trust, we don't need to use the word trust. When someone uses the word trust me, the trust go down already because like yeah. So this competency is very interesting because the more you say trust me, the more you say this is a safe space, the more the person feel opposite.
Good
So
point.
this
Good point.
yeah. Yeah, so in the same way, I cannot say, oh, this is a psychologically safe space, safe environment, you can rest assured. Or the moment you say you can rest assured, the person already feel not assured, can rest assured. Yeah. So this is where cultivation here is important. What does it mean here? It means I'm not telling you trust me. I'm not telling you it's a safe space. I'm creating that space that makes you feel safe. So sometimes, right, in the room, like sometimes let's say in the coaching space, I may put some toys or some things, make the person feel that this room is not so cold. Or sometimes I may have more colloquial talk with the person, make the person feel very more relaxed. Or sometimes I will also notice the client whether they are what kind of like style they are at. So I create an environment, or I choose an environment where it's most supportive for them. So, for example, if I realize that my office space is too cold or too scary for some of my stuff, then I may do it in a coffee place, maybe Starbucks or somewhere else. Feels more relaxed, right? So here, we say that trust is not what we say or declare. It is experience. In the same way, safety is not what I say you have or not have, but it's experienced by the individual. So here, when I so that's why sometimes I disagree with coaches when they say, "Oh, in this space, it's going to be a safe space." Whenever the coach say that, I feel that you are automatically creating a scenario where the client will be more alerted. Am I safe? Am I not safe? Right? So, for example, like doctors, right? When you go for surgery or when you meet the doctors, the doctors may never say, "Hey, trust me, I'm a doctor. This is a safe space. You can tell me anything." Right? Or you're on a surgery table and the doctor says, "Hey, Dennis, trust me, okay? I'm a good surgeon." Right? It's a safe space. Then I'll be very worried. So to me, when coaches start the session, you don't have to tell the person this is a safe space. You demonstrate that in the way the person is experiencing it. Okay, so that's my thought, because I think of it as same thing for financial advisors, right? If I'm a financial advisor, I go to you and say, "Hey, I'm a well-respected financial advisor. Trust me with your money." So the person will be alerted to what's happening, right? So here we think of it as the environment. Is the environment safe for the client to be themselves, be who they are, fully express themselves? It is supportive for them. Okay, do we understand the client in their context? So it's not about my context, but do I understand them in their context? And also respecting their identity, their style. Style here means their own way of showing up, who they are. Some clients, maybe they show up in a way where they are a little bit more quiet, or they're a bit more expressive, maybe a little bit more logical, or depending on their style, right? So, and also the choice of language that they use. Also, that's where we acknowledge the strengths. So in the coaching process, sometimes what builds that trust is that I notice certain strengths in their conversation. I extract those strengths. I highlight those strengths. I reflect back. I acknowledge. I support that. Yeah, and I share them with evidence. As hey, I noticed just now. You said this, and I just want to acknowledge you for that strength there. Right? So acknowledging strengths, insights, demonstrates empathy and concern for the client where appropriate in the conversation. Empathy here is not saying that I hear you alone. So a lot of coaches just say, "I hear you, I hear you." I hear you is not enough, because sometimes I hear you is like it feels very rigid, right? So a better way is that I I can sense how it must be it must be challenging for you, right? So I must demonstrate the empathy there, and then openness and transparency. So sometimes in the coaching process, I may have accidentally said something wrong. I may have accidentally maybe asked a question that may have not been so sensitive to the client. Then I can acknowledge, I say, hey, apologize if the question came across a bit too rough or a bit insensitive. I apologize for that. Right. So I can also be transparent to the client. Sometimes as a human, maybe I was not aware. I become too insensitive to that. Okay, so sometimes across cultures, when you do cross-cultural coaching, we have to be a bit more careful when we are kind of like coaching the other person. Yeah. Okay, so here, I always say that trust is built through attunement, not reassurance. Right? So attunement means I'm tuning into the client. When I demonstrate empathy, when I demonstrate acknowledging of your strength, when I demonstrate I'm recognizing your style, I respect your own style individuality, that is me attuning to you. So I don't have to reassure you that, oh, trust me. Right? So it's less on reassurance, more on being able to come to hold that space for you. Okay, so that's cultivates trust and safety. Any questions for this one? Okay, no. Let's go to competency 5. Competency 5 is the last competency within
wait,
this.
sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
I like just now when you talk about how you feel that it's not very real to come ask or to actually explicitly say like oh yeah, in this space you can trust me or whatsoever, right? Is it your opinion or is it the ICF standard?
It's my opinion.
Oh, okay.
I
Then
said
if
doesn't. I said
ask
doesn't say.
such a thing, like if the scenario is that the coach says this thing, does it cultivate trust and safety?
What you could read the scenario. To me, it doesn't. Yeah, you just say doesn't cultivate, because the key word here is that is it, are you assuring the client that it's a safe space, or are you demonstrating? Because the key word here, you notice the word the ICF uses, cultivates trust.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't tell you, I don't uh uh say that trust and safety. So what do we mean cultivation? Cultivating means that there's a way of developing that trust and safety over time.
Mm.
Through what? Through acknowledging, through what? Respecting, through understanding, through demonstrating. Right. So the way I cultivate is through these few things, not rather than me telling you. So even though ICF doesn't explicitly say you cannot do it, but based on these principles here, my best practice would be to tell coaches, try not to, you don't have to say that. But if I have to say that, means that I have not really done these few things here to cultivate the trust and safety with you.
Mm. Okay, got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, competency 5, this is on maintains presence. So here's about coaching presence. And this is where we say, okay, sometimes the coach is very present with the process, or present with the tool or the technique. They're not really present with the client. So the key word here is being fully conscious and present in the moment. Focus, observant, and empathetic with the client. And in competency 5, a lot of sense of curiosity, responding to, acts in response to. So here, you have this key idea of acting in response to. Okay. So I act in response to the client's presenting information. So rather than thinking of it as, okay, at this stage I should ask this question, or at that stage, okay, I'm thinking about what is most responsive to the client, who the client is. Okay, being aware of what's emerging, comfortable with strong emotions, and comfortable in the space of unknown, not knowing. I may not know what's going to happen next, right? But I'm comfortable with that. And then using silence intentionally. That means not everything on silence, but I choose certain places of the conversation to be more silent. Okay, so that's silence intentionally. Okay, so here, we always say the presence is felt before it's heard. So when someone is present with you, you feel like, hey, they're noticing certain things. They're being intentional. Okay, so that's coaching presence here. Okay, then we go into the third domain called communicating effectively. So here there's two key competency 6 and 7. They're quite tied together. Competency 6 on listens actively. To evidence and listen actively, there must be certain things I'm noticing of you, what you ask, what you say, right? So here we see when someone is actively listening or listens actively, there is a certain pattern, certain things that they're doing. For example, that individual or the coach is noticing what is said, what is not said. The coach is also observing the context of the client and the systems. So systems means how everything tied together for the client, from the career systems, career choices, how does it weave into their family choices, holiday choices, personal aspirations, hobbies, ambitions, vision, right? So the bigger systems of the client. So sometimes in the coaching process, we may have to get the client to step out a little bit, because sometimes the clients get too absorbed in the next promotion cycle, right? So, oh, I do not know whether can I get promoted. So they get stuck in their own system. So we want to get them to step out. And here, I may choose to reflect and summarize to ensure clarity of understanding. I don't have to do it for all the time, but when I do it, is to ensure I have clarity of what the client's expressing. And also notices emotions, any energy shift, non-verbal cues, body language shifts. So all these things I'm noticing. And identifying patterns as coming across the whole conversation. So when I'm noticing that, I can read back to the client. Right. So this is where some of the things that happens in the listening actively. Okay. So the key idea here is when we listen, we are trying to understand where the client is coming from. Right. What is said, what is not said, who the client is, and what the client is. So, and then there's also two key ideas here: the what and the who. The themes of the what and the who. Okay, so what is the situation? Who is the person? Okay, this will tie into evoking awareness. So notice here, it's not about questions, but awareness. So one of the tools to evoke awareness is questions, but there are other tools as well. So here it's where I facilitate insights and learning, helping to bring up insights or perspectives. I may challenge the client. I may offer perspective without attachment, so the client can consider from different angle. Right. So I ask questions about the person, the who, not just the problem, the what. So it doesn't mean that I only ask the who. I also ask the what questions, and exploring beyond current thinking, or here current thinking, feeling, or behaving. I may use other tools and techniques like silence, metaphors, reframing. I can also use perspective shifts. Right? So there are many different tools I can use to support evoking awareness. And then what I do is I adjust my approach in real time. What is working, what's not working, I may adjust accordingly. Okay. Any questions for evoking awareness? Okay, so here the keyword is expanding perspective and not telling the client, this is the lesson, or this is the insight. I expand the perspective, invite the client to consider from the different perspective. Okay, good. Finally, our last competency under this domain, the only competency in one domain, called cultivating learning and growth. So here we have facilitates clients' growth. So notice the word cultivating appear again. So cultivating is a process. It takes time. So we also realize that actions the client is designed may take time. So here, where we transform learnings or insights into actions, promote client autonomy. That means, is the action client-centered, client-led? Does the client have autonomy over the action? Integrating those insights into client's worldview, how they see the world, and designing the goals, actions, accountability. Identify resources and barriers. Right? Is the progress sustainable? Is it supporting the client new habit change? Acknowledging the success, and it closes the session intentionally. Okay, right? Sometimes we can say intentionally and respectfully. Okay, so think about sustained progress as good habit change. Yeah. Okay, so the key idea here: growth owned by the client, not driven by the coach. In sports coaching, the growth may be driven by the coach as well, right? But in the professional coaching, the client must want it more than the coach. Right. I will support you as a cheerleader. Say, yeah, you go for it. Right. But I cannot be wanting this growth more than you. If I want this more than you, then this becomes my objective rather than your objective. Okay, good. So these are the 8 core competencies as a very, very quick exam review summary. Think about the key phrase, keywords. Now what you're going to do is you're going to read through the whole core competencies and then look at line upon line, the sub-competencies. How is it expressed? What is it saying? Think through the whole, the way it's phrased. What are the expressions? What are some of the key words that they're saying? Why was it crafted this way? And how was it different from what I'm thinking about in terms of the competencies?